The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions of WBGR Network. Any questions or concerns about what is said should be directed to the show host, whose information will be provided upon request.
Said the mic's open, right?
Okay, does that mean we're live? I don't see the red light. I can't see that far. Very good.
What is the red light show?
Testing 1 2 1 2 1 2. Are we live?
Yes.
Very good. All right. Well, welcome. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening. My name is Muhammad Bashir, and this is the Freedom Fighters of the DMV show on WBGR Network Online Radio. Welcome to the show. For those of you who are Muslims, Assalamu alaikum. For those of you who are not Muslims, peace and blessings be with you. And I hope you enjoy the show this evening. This evening is I have along with me my main man who's going to be my conscience for the night. Make sure he holds me down, because this kind of a show will get me fired up. This is James Tarek Lang, a giant in our community. He's involved in construction, also involved in working in the prisons and educating and uplifting young minds and absolutely holding down older minds like mine. So just welcome him, and inshallah we'll have a nice round discussion. Those of you who want to participate in the discussion, remember this show is hosted by our brother here, Sharif Shafi. He's out this evening, so that gives me the opportunity to host again for this evening. Those of you who have heard me before know that I have my own podcast. It's called the Raw Law Project. I'm a retired criminal trial lawyer, 28 years of experience. You don't know a case that I haven't tried, the nature of it. I'm also now an author, so here's a shameless plug in case you wanted to know whether or not it was coming. It is. This is my old book. It's called Raw Law, An Urban Guide to Criminal Justice. You can go get it at mbashirspeaks.com. And this is my latest book, April 4th, Lessons on Living and Dying. You can also get it at Bashir Speaks. I promised you that my other book, which is hot on the presses, would be out 2 weeks ago, but unfortunately we had some snags. That one's called America in Blackface, which is essays and criticisms of black leadership. And I think you're going to enjoy that. If you enjoyed Raw Law and you enjoy April 4th, this one is much harder there, because I think we need to be much more critical in our communities as to what it is that's going on. Which is why this particular topic tonight, Eric Garner and Beyond, is one that is dear to my heart. For those of you who don't know, and I don't know why you don't know, Eric Garner was a young, father, man in Staten Island, New York, June 17th, 5 years ago. 5 years ago this week, he was approached by 6-7 police officers who alleged that he was selling loose cigarettes. I don't know why that subjected to an arrest, because loose cigarettes is at best a misdemeanor. So it should subject you at best maybe a traffic ticket, a citation, as opposed to an arrest. But they decided they were going to arrest him. He was placed into a chokehold by a police officer, and he was taken down. He was piled on by these 6 or 7 police officers. They compressed his chest, his throat, and those of us who don't know the expression "I can't breathe." According to reports and according to the tape that we had opportunity to review, he said "I can't breathe" nearly 11 times. The question was whether or not anyone would be tried, anyone would be charged in his death. No one has been charged, and no one will be charged. The Attorney General, the United States Attorney General, William Barr, Trump's right-hand man stepped in 3 days ago, before a particular court order giving sanctions to New York and to the United States Attorney's Office, and announced that there would be no prosecutions in this matter. Those of us who saw the tape, we know exactly what happened. It's not hard. But this is what I'm going to do, is I'm going to address the law, and then I'm going to address what I always do. I'm going to address social context so that you all get an understanding as to what's going on. The last time I spoke to you, I discussed whether or not you were an American, and so I'm going to stick with that theme as I address this here. Eric Garner's case, the prosecutor indicated that the reason why they were not prosecuting anyone is that they could not prove the case. They didn't believe it had sufficient evidence to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's your first smokescreen. Those of you who know me know that in 28 years of criminal trial work, you learn the intricacies of being able to maneuver the community and maneuver people's mentality. First of all, the standard for beyond a reasonable doubt is only a trial jury standard, meaning first, before you do anything, you get an investigation. When that investigation is done, if you're a prosecutor, you present that investigation to a grand jury. The grand jury is the one who determines whether or not there's sufficient evidence to charge someone. Sufficient evidence, not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Sufficient evidence in a grand jury simply means that if your grand jury is composed of 25 people, 13, that is a majority, has to decide whether or not there's sufficient evidence to charge someone. And that's really what the issue is. So when a prosecutor steps up and said they couldn't prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, they would not know that unless they present it to a jury during a trial. So when they say beyond a reasonable doubt, you know that's smoke. That's smoke and mirrors. You know that that's something that's they're pulling the wool over your eyes. But nowadays that's nothing new. When you look at the history, this is what they do in the black community when they don't want to prosecute a police officer, a protector of their power. What do I mean when I say a grand jury? A grand jury is composed in most jurisdictions. In New York, I think it's 25 citizens. The prosecutor has an obligation, in order for anyone to stand trial on a case in New York or under the Constitution, under the Sixth Amendment, a matter has to be presented to the grand jury for an indictment. An indictment is a formal charge. When you present a matter to a grand jury, you're just presenting sufficient evidence to establish that there's probable cause, a reasonable belief that a crime was committed. Now, let's assume that the family and all of us wanted a murder charge. They may not be able to get murder because the murder is an intentional killing of someone. All right? When you intend to kill someone, you set out to kill someone, and you actually do it, that's murder. So they may not have been able to present that to a grand jury and even get an indictment. But if you're in the state of New York, you have two levels here. You have the state of New York, and you have the federal government that handles civil rights violations. In the state of New York, there's a statute for murder. And underneath the statute of murder, which they may not have been able to get an indictment for, is also the idea of manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide. Criminally negligent homicide means that you have a duty to the particular person that you are attempting to arrest, or you come across someone and you act in a way that has reckless disregard for that particular person's life, or you act in a manner that demonstrates that you are about to breach a duty that you have to that particular person. That makes you negligent, and that negligent comes with a criminal intent, that you intend to do something and you do it in a manner that is so negligent that you therefore can be charged with criminally negligent homicide. Now let's take that just for a minute. Let's assume that I wanted to charge these officers and I was going to the grand jury. The first thing I would want to do is I would want to present evidence of the death. So therefore I got an autopsy, I got a medical examiner who's saying three things in that autopsy. One, the person is dead. He therefore labels it a homicide because a homicide is a death caused by the person of another. Another person causes your death, it's a homicide. Second thing is, I want to present evidence that as to what the manner of death was, to be able to establish that what they did was negligent. He was placed in what's commonly referred to as a chokehold. If you watch the video, you'll see the Officer Lavodi, I believe his name is. Is it Lavodi? No. whatever his name is. He walks up behind him. He puts his right arm underneath Mr. Garner's right arm, like an arm bar, and then he snatches him around his neck and his throat the other way and locks his arms. He then drags him backwards. That means he's pushed an immediate pressure on his throat area. That's called a chokehold. It is a classic chokehold. In New York, there was a case in 1994 where a young man named Anthony Bias was placed in a chokehold. That's where I got Lavoti from. Lavoti was the officer who put him in that chokehold. He choked him. The kid died. He had asthma. It cut off his breath. He died. He was not charged in the state of New York. Actually, he was charged in the state of New York. He went, as they always do, found a judge trial, no jury, and he was acquitted. The federal government picked up the case as a violation of his civil rights. But when they charged, what they talked about this particular chokehold. So if you're in New York, again, you have a case precedent, where you have established that the chokehold is a negligent act. It's and even more so now, because immediately following the death of Anthony Bias in 1994, they passed a law and a statute and a police department directive indicating that the chokehold is illegal. It's unlawful for you to use as a police officer. So therein lies your first prong in determining whether or not a person is negligent. You want to establish that he's doing something that is separate and apart from what is the norm against this particular person. And so therefore, if he's acting outside of the norm, he is acting negligently. What do I mean by that? Let's assume I want to arrest you, and I walk up and I wrap a rope around your neck. There's no need for you to wrap a rope around my neck in order to arrest me. What you do is you handcuff me. You may even tackle me. You may take me down and put my hands behind my back. Yes. But the minute you go for the throat with an illegal or an unlawful or an unsanctioned action, you have now acted negligently. You have moved past the standard of care that is required on that particular person. So you can prove that prong, at least some evidence of that prong, for the purposes of a grand jury. You have a death, you have negligence, you have now criminally negligent homicide that can be indicted. But he wasn't indicted. And by the way, my understanding that in that particular neighborhood, the person who was in charge of that indictment during that time frame for Mr. Garner was, I believe it was Loretta Lynch, who became an Obama appointment. But that's just me. Now, what does that do? What does that say about criminal justice? You now move from the state, who say we're not going to charge, to the Fed. The federal government at that point was the Obama administration. The Attorney General on that side of the case was Eric Holder. Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder. Loretta Lynch succeeds Eric Holder in the criminal justice system as the United States Attorney once Eric Holder retires. But it's my understanding from all the reports that I've read that Eric Holder wanted to indict, or at least he thought he could indict. So he referred the matter to the United States Attorney's Office in New York, and then they had a squabble. The United States Attorney versus the Justice Department versus the Civil Rights Division, the Criminal Division versus the Civil Rights Division. One arguing, yes, we have enough evidence. One arguing, we don't have enough evidence. So it languished. So that means that this black prosecutor did not indict in the death of this black man. Now, I say that like that, not to get you fired up over the racial implications of it, except that you understand the racial implications of it. Because we have a history in America of those who have the privilege of being accepted into the halls of power always side with the halls of power to the detriment of the masses of black people. It has existed since Reconstruction. It may even existed before Reconstruction. Some of the greatest eugenicists in the United States weren't just Margaret Sanger. They were some of the most profound and most popular black intellectuals that were of that particular time, thinking that, well, there was a class of black people that didn't deserve to reproduce, or that they were an unfit class, or that they were from, how did Du Bois label Marcus Garvey, uncommon stock. But the mentality still permeates itself now, that there are some people who we don't want to shake the power, our perceived power, by defending them. So that's where we exist as it relates to this particular case. In the Fed, once the matter is turned over to the Fed, they have a different statute. You now already know that there was enough evidence there for you to indict in the state, but they chose not to. So they moved the matter on to the Fed. So for 5 years it languished with the Fed. Now, could the Fed have indicted? There's a statute. You all can look it up. 18 USC 242. The color of the law statute. It's a civil rights violation, a criminal civil rights violation for you acting under the color of the law to violate anybody's right under a statute of the Constitution, an ordinance, or anything like that, as you are acting under the color of the law. So, in order for you to establish that to the satisfaction of a grand jury and get an indictment, because really this is what we're talking about. No, they're talking about no one is even going to be charged. So what we're just talking about is getting an indictment. For you to establish that and get an indictment, what do you have to have? You have to establish that the person who did the choking or did the acting or did the arresting was operating under the color of law. Under the color of law means he's a police officer. He's acting in the performance of a police activity. There were at least 7 of them acting in the performance of a police activity. The autopsy demonstrated that this was compression to this young man's throat, that there was compression to this young man's chest that caused an asthmatic attack that he could not recover from. Now, when we talked about negligence earlier, what happens when someone says to you, I can't breathe? Let's assume they say it once. You're a trained police officer. They say it twice. If you listen to the tape, listen for the background noises of the citizens. Because by the time he says it twice, I can't breathe, they have already picked up that he's in distress. But the 7 officers who are laying on top of him, compressing his chest and his throat to the ground, don't pick it up. That demonstrates a reckless disregard for the value of human life. And therefore, the seizure of him is unreasonable. There are 2 prongs in the federal statute. Whether or not the conduct of the police officer acting under the color of law was unreasonable and willful. Now their argument is that it was not willful. They couldn't prove willfulness. So let's deal with unreasonable first. The first one is you got 7 officers arrest somebody for selling cigarettes. It's not like he's selling truckloads of cigarettes. We're talking about loosies. For those of you who know, that's like you go into a pack, you pull out one, you sell it for $1. You sell it for 50 cents because someone on the street wants to buy a cigarette. So the approach him as it relates to arrest like that might be, to a layperson, somewhat unreasonable. And remember, when you're talking to a grand jury, you're talking to lay people. You're not talking about legal scholars. You're talking about lay people. What do you think about this is what you're asking him in the grand jury. Do you think this is reasonable to approach him? Secondly, do you think it's reasonable to approach him with 7 officers over something like loose cigarettes? Thirdly, do you think it's reasonable to approach him and grab him from behind to place him under arrest in a unreasonable chokehold? So therefore, you have now established, if you, to a matter of a jury, you just need 13 out of 25 to agree that, you know what, that might be unreasonable. Do you think you could maybe find that that was unreasonable? Just those little facts. And here he is, he's saying, look, what are you bothering me for? What are you doing? What am I doing? That's what he's saying. And so they say, we're going to arrest you, we're going to arrest you. He's like, for what? For what? For what? Boom, they take him down. Now let's talk about willful. The chokehold helps you demonstrate that it's not anything but intentional. Willful means a specific intent to do an injustice, to do harm. You have to have the intent to do it, to do exactly what you did. And that is to use excessive force. Anytime, like I said, if I were to walk up to you to place you under arrest and throw a rope around your neck, that's exactly what I intended to do. But that would not be reasonable, and it would be willful. It would be a specific intent on my part to use excess force against you. If I walked up to you and just said, I'm going to place you under arrest. I thought I saw you walk across the street. And for walking across the street, I decided to punch you in your mouth. That's going to be my way of then placing you under arrest. That's willful. I know that's what my intention is, to punch you in the mouth. So if I know that a chokehold is unlawful, even if it's just something that's New York policy, that you can't do it, and I do it anyway, then I am doing it willfully. When I take you down on a chokehold and hold you down, I'm doing it willfully. Now, as he's saying, I can't breathe, and these other officers are piling on top of him, alleging that they're trying to get his hands behind his back. He's saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And they're ignoring him. What could be more unreasonable and willful with a specific intent to use excessive force against him than something along that line? What could be more? I don't think you can get more, but at least you can get that to a grand jury. Let's assume you can't prove it at a trial. Maybe a jury sits back and they say, I don't think it was unreasonable. But to a grand jury, see, a jury has to be unanimous in a criminal trial. But at the grand jury, you only have to have one person vote more than the other people. So if your grand jury is 15, you get 8 people to agree, you got an indictment. Now, why is that important? Those of us who are in the criminal justice system, and you do prison, right?
Yeah.
You know that these indictments, they overcharge, especially if you're black, and then they plead you at what they really think you did.
Right.
Because that's what puts the pressure on you. I'm facing 25 years for this particular crime, and they offer me 5. Yo, wait a minute, I got a decision to make.
Right.
And that's the dilemma that we are in each and every day. We got mandatory minimums for drug offenses. I got 3 vials of crack cocaine. So instead of it just being simple possession, they're saying, no, I thought I saw him hand those off. So I'm going to charge him with possession with intent, possession with intent within 1,000 feet of a school, possession with intent within 500 feet of a park, and possession with intent within 1,000 feet of a school comes with a mandatory 5 years in prison, top number of 10, mandatory 5. And then they offer you a plea to possession. Possession comes with probation to 3. You think you're going to take that? Oh, you're going to jump on that with both feet. You can jump on it with my feet. You're going to borrow my shoes to jump on that.
Right.
And that's exactly what they do in the criminal justice system. So you put the pressure on them by gaining that indictment.
Right.
Cops never have that pressure on them, especially in some place like in a case like this.
Right.
But it speaks volumes of 3 things. The people in power, whether they be black or white, did not value the life of Eric Garner. The people who originally approached him didn't value his life. The people who had the immediate ability to do justice to him and his family didn't value his life. That includes the prosecutor, that includes the 2 attorney generals, both of whom were black, and that includes William Barr, the Trump appointee who now has the case. That's the Eric Garner case. If you want to call and talk about it, give me a call at 301-429-9247 or 301-306-7284. That's 301-429-9247 or 301-306-7284. But why do I mention William Barr? Because this week we had a real interesting set of scenarios, and that was with the president. The president took on 4 minority women. Now, and I say minority women, I can say minority women, right? Because minorities. Because women are considered a minority, and then you got a Palestinian,
Right.
an African American. I think Ocasio-Cortez is Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
from the Bronx, she's probably Puerto Rican. I'm not stereotyping,
I'm from the Bronx.
That's right. I know you're from the Bronx.
But no, I'm Puerto Rican.
And you got a Somali African.
Muslim. Don't forget that part.
So you got all these who are coming together as freshmen to raise their voice and to raise hell on Capitol Hill. Now, think about this and analogize it. Trump comes out and attacks them. And he attacks them for the same reason, with the same intent that they have with Eric Garner. See, Eric Garner has no voice. His I can't breathe is ignored. How dare you, black woman, minority Palestinian? How dare you, African American? How dare you, Puerto Rican? How dare you think you have a voice in this house, in these halls of power? This is really what they're saying to them. And they represent, interestingly enough, because it's really shocking to me, they represent the so-called unity that we constantly keep saying that we want in the government. The diversity, etc. The only thing that's missing from them is a Italian and a brother. That's the only thing that's missing. Right. And what they try to do is shut their voices down.
That's a nice way to put it. I mean, basically, that's the message that like you use a chokehold, what you said is unlawful. And what Trump is doing is unlawful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For him to even say go back to where you came from is a violation of the law. Do you know there's a law out there that says that that's part of discrimination
even
in the Civil
in
Rights Act?
One of the things, he's a government employee. A lot of times, I mean, and you have rules and regulations that you have to follow.
There you go.
You have certain things that you can do and can't do.
Right.
And so, what he's doing is incorrect. But even for the fact that, he's a child of an immigrant. His father is a dreamer, basically. I mean, I was looking at the thing, and his father was born in 1905. His parents had just come back from Germany at that time. So basically, he was conceived over there. And so, they're immigrants. His wife is an immigrant. His grandfather's an immigrant. His mother's an immigrant. And he's making a statement, go back.
Right. I know, isn't that?
But the thing is one of the things that was crazy is one of the things what this guy did is that he attacked the intelligence community. And so, if you say that you love America, why would you attack them? But the thing is, why? Because it's a lot of these things are kind of like 1984 to get people to certain, words mean things. So he attacks the intelligence community, not just the intelligence, different agencies, but the intelligence to thinking.
Right.
He likes the dummies. Right. They follow these things. They listen to it. The people don't study. And one of the things about that he's going after the sister, the Muslim sister, but I believe he has an issue with my homegirl from the Bronx. I'm from the Bronx.
Oh, absolutely.
And I went to Boston University. She went to Boston University. And this lady is so smart. I think the consulate or something like that is named after her. Prior to her getting elected. He knows that. He's a fellow New Yorker.
Right.
A fellow New Yorker acting the way he is acting.
Right.
He knows. Right. He grew up in the immigrant community. His father's from his father grew up in the Bronx.
Right.
And the same borough that his father came to, an immigrant, living in a German community in the Bronx, he's attacking somebody from the Bronx and telling her to go home.
That's right.
How many times when the Germans were going through the discrimination that they were dealing with because they had the riots with the priests? His father was arrested in 1927?
That's right.
Because he was with the Ku Klux Klan and they was protesting the Roman Catholic police, I believe, or
that's right.
whatever, and their actions. And he knows the discrimination that his father went through and grandfather went through in the Bronx. But yet he's attacking somebody, telling her to go back to the Bronx, knowing that her father was born in the Bronx.
That's right. So now that you put that on the table, let's help the audience understand what's really going on behind the scenes. What really is happening here, especially because, again, it's really about the black and the minority community. That particular sense of unity of coming together with these other minorities is one of the most frightening things. I mean, J. Edgar Hoover told you a long time ago, we cannot have black unity.
Right.
And black unity in the 60s meant that they were dragging white liberals and white liberal money into an understanding of what it is to be black in America and that it needed to change. That's why white liberals became the enemy. Richard Nixon said that, and blacks became the enemy. Because the white liberals were beginning to understand and begin to shed their white privilege and begin to say, you know what, this is right, we have to change this. This is what these four women represent. But let me tell you what really is working behind the scenes here. See, because the attacks on these women begin with the Democratic Party.
Oh, yeah.
Nancy Pelosi is the one who put forward that resolution to censor Ilhan Omar.
And this is my thing. When that happened, they said even though she didn't make a statement, she inferred.
That's right.
And so here he makes a blanket statement, but when the people came for his defense, they said, "Oh, he never mentioned anybody's name."
That's right.
He wasn't specific, but like you said, if you did all of what you did against Ilhan because of what she inferred, then what's happening with this situation?
That's right.
This is clearly, I mean, we know who he was talking about, whether he mentioned their name or not. We know what the idea was, and then his statement is a typical statement from people that have problems with immigrants or other people or even us.
That's right.
We know, most of us, we're from here. Grandfathers, great-grandfathers, Native American from here, and somebody would tell me, hey, go back to Africa. And I'll say, nah, you go back to Europe. My people are Native American.
There you go.
And we've been, even the Africans that came here before they had the first travel ban from Christopher Columbus, we have people that still stay here, Muslims and other people from all over. So you go back to wherever you're from.
There you go.
So, I mean, but the thing is like I said, going back to the attack on the intelligence community, it's not just the organized intelligence community, the different agents, it was the community of thinkers.
Right.
You see, because we're living in a time now because of the internet where you can use it to start thinking. and really growing.
That's right.
Yes.
If you're willing to think and grow. That's why everybody out there needs to encourage someone to read a book. I don't even care if it's mine. Read. You gotta read.
See, the thing is this blinding of the light. You know, you have these lights and you're just looking at the light all the time. It has effects on your eyes.
Absolutely.
If it has effects on your eyes, it also has effects on your vision. And the vision, not just the vision that you're seeing out, the vision that you're seeing in your head. You can't imagine things anymore. At least with a book, I have to put pictures to everything.
Right.
And by putting pictures, I can imagine that as me, I can be able to be creative. And the more books I read, the more creative I become, because I have to put pictures to that. But when I'm just looking at images all the time,
right,
and of course they're not me.
And listening to sound bites.
Yes.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the sound bites. See, because when the Democrats begin to attack AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I don't like calling her AOC, I think that's an insult.
Yeah.
All right? And Ilhan Omar, right? When they're attacking them,
right,
what they are really doing is setting up an attack on progressive thinking. Right. That is that unifying thinking that they were sent to Washington to take care of. So the Democrats don't want that either. This is why they are all in on Biden.
Well, like Malcolm said, he said, you know, Dixiecrat, Democrat,
that's right.
You know, it's all the
Wolf,
same.
Fox.
I mean, he said they'll take you and they'll use you, and we have to look at it.
That's right.
You know, we went from being Republicans, you know, before FDR, and then what is it? A. Philip Randolph got us to change over, and what has that done for us? Now being Democrats,
right? We
give promises all the time, and what change has really happened?
That's right.
You know, they make all these promises, we're going to do this and do this, and what?
And
nothing happened. But at least when we were Republicans and we did for South, and we had our own businesses, then we can be able to establish things on our own.
Right.
We did that change, but it's not the individuals that whether the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, these are individuals that their party is not the party. Their party is what? The party, as we say, Hezbollah or Hizbul Shaitan, and that was so the party of Allah. But you have the party of the devil,
right? And
that's really what it comes down to. These allegiance to these people that is not for God. It's not for nationality. It's not for the American government. It's for, you know, the deviants and the deviant actions that they do.
Well,
and that's it.
That's exactly what they are. But if you take a look at the Democratic Party, and you see that they are all in, or at least trying to get all in behind Biden, the first thing they wanted to do was, this is why you have 20 Democrats running for president, because what they want to do is to eliminate the idea that someone too liberal can beat Donald Trump. They believe that if they get someone who's a little bit more centered, they're going to encourage the white vote to come to their side. So it's really about eliminating you, Eric Garner. It's really about shutting your voice down, Eric Garner, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Cortez. Shut your voice down so that we can move to the center to where the real Americans exist. The real, so what they call, what Clinton called blue dog Democrats, what they called Ronald Reagan Democrats, what they call independents, what they call all those, what Obama sought out when he said there's no black America, no white America, only the United States of America. He was talking to a specific demographic that does not include black people, and the people who are standing up now, these four women, are actually representing agendas or trying to put forward agendas that say change the way we see things, but they don't want to change.
See, the thing is, I think too, also, is that they're trying to get the people to get turned off to voting. Because look at people, black people and other people, or so-called minority people, they were able to get those type of women or those type of people in office. That shows their proof that your vote can make a change, in the local change.
That's right.
Not the national change.
That's right.
And they know that the only way that he's going to do another term is if we don't vote, do like they did this, like the Russians did this before, and got us to give up on voting, got our youth to decide, vote doesn't make a difference.
Now you see the difference.
They show the Bronx girl, the Muslim girl, the other, they show that a vote does make a difference.
But you see what they're doing with that. The idea is to pit. Now, he's doing that to shut down the vote, and the Democrats are doing that to shut down the progressive vote. So both of them are doing the same thing, playing the same game, hoping that they can battle for the so-called middle class or middle America white vote, to the exclusion of everybody else, to the minority vote. This is this is the Freedom Fighters DMV. Who am I speaking with?
How you doing, brother? This is Brother Sharif.
Hey, what's up, brother? How are you? Assalamu alaikum.
Hey, how you, brother?
We knew you would call in. You always call in when it gets hot.
Hey, but you guys got that thing smoking, man. I ain't trying to throw no water. I'm trying to put some gas on.
There you go. That's what it's about. Let's do that. Absolutely.
Hey, how y'all doing, first of all?
Oh, alhamdulillah, things
Great.
are good. Things
Doing
are good.
Great.
And
How you doing?
Thank you for allowing us to be a part of this particular venture you have going on here, because you know what, the time has come. We have got to. It's really about our voices, and our voices have to be out there, and we have to begin to put our hearts and our bodies on the line.
And I'd like to thank you for your continuous effort to be able to inform the people about what's going on. I mean, a lot of people don't know about it, and people will start knowing about it. So they need to watch the old shows and other things and other people that you have put forth and information that you have put forth throughout time to inform our people, to keep them educated, and like I said, deal with the real intelligence community.
There you go.
Hey, well, you know, one of the comments I want to make, man, and ask y'all a couple questions. Garner, I don't understand. Well, I do understand why they waited for the last day, you know, the 11th hour before they came out and said, "Hey, we're not going to prosecute this white boy." Right? I do understand that, and but the question I want to ask you: do you believe that black men are protecting our black women that's in Congress right now? These four black women, and, you know, for as I'm concerned, is black. Do you think that the brothers need to come out and rally for them? You know, say, "Hey, keep your mouth off of me, keep your hands off them."
Go ahead, Tarek. Hit that. That's your
No.
pet peeve.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I mean, we should. You know, the thing is what they want us to do is be in a position of weakness. And they point out, you know, different things. This person cursed, this person doesn't cover, this person said this. But the reality is these people are standing up. And these are women. And we have to be able to protect our women. That's our responsibility. And so they have to know that we're there. So not even, like you said, rally. I guess a lot of times when people think rally, people coming out in groups. But, you know, one of the things that we looked at when there used to be events in the Nation Islam, or somebody that would come and they would send, you know, the FOI out there to be able to protect these people. I mean, that has to be organized. That has to happen. They have to understand that, you know, you're not going to harm them. You're not going to touch them. And nobody's going to follow up. As American, like I said, see, one of the things about the American, no, I'm gonna take my 100% right. So the waving the flag and all of that, but as a member of the union, because I used to be in the electrical union, and I learned my right as a car carrying union member, I'm gonna exercise 100% of that. So as a member of this union, or so-called states or whatever and stuff, I have a right to be able to protect my family, to protect my women, to protect, you know, other citizens, you know, who I care about. And these people, I mean, what's happening is they're trying to put fear in their heart. They're getting threats from other Americans,
Absolutely.
other people. So you have an issue, and I'm supposed to not say something. I'm supposed to wait for an organization or wait for them to stand up. And if I say to stand up, that's a problem? No. Just like you say you have a right, American, because you're from Germany or some other European nation and your skin happens to be white, then I have a right, just like you, to stand up. That's it. So that's the part about the American or whatever, huh?
Go ahead, Shah.
Like, you know, not only black men, you gotta look at this dynamic. You got Hispanic, you got the Native American, you got the Muslim community, then you got the African descendants, individual in this country. These are women, basically of African descent, all of them, because we got the skin color. I guarantee you, find out to a donut, you go into these communities, nobody's talking about it but African descent.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna throw something.
I don't see anybody else talking about this other than the African descent. I don't see the Spanish community talking about it. And these are our women. They testing us. This is like the thing, like I said. If slavery came back tomorrow night and they pulled the bus up, some of us are going to jump on the bus for you.
Well,
we're going to follow the law.
But, bro, tell me this here. Let me throw this out to both of you. What's the difference between the way they treat them and the way they just treated Eric Garner as it relates to the response of the community, regardless of what community you're from?
I mean,
what's the difference?
Eric Garner, the thing is like you said, even with the prior administration, they weren't giving him justice.
That's right.
And now that this the the new person is in there who has turned it to the Injustice League or the Department of Injustice. You know, before they used to be unjust and we didn't know about it. They would try to be slick, but right now with him in charge, even with the Mueller and all that and stuff, he's shown that they can be unjust and they can and it's okay. And so I didn't expect anything. I don't really believe anybody else expected anything.
But the question is, what response? I mean, he asked, "Are we protecting the women? Why are these women any different than Sandra Bland?
Oh yeah.
Why are these women any different than Ayanna Presley? I mean, Ayanna Jones, 7-year-old killed in Detroit in her bathtub.
Well, the thing is it's a mold that has to happen. We have to be in the mode of just protecting women in general. Because the reality is, I understand, like you said, black women, but the reality as a man, and we have to be the leaders of men, and as a Muslim, you know, if I'm walking down the street and I see a woman being abused, then I have a responsibility to protect that woman, whether she be black, white, gray, or whatever.
But that's what my question is.
So that has to be our natural mode.
But that's my question. Do we have that kind of moral integrity left in the world, and left especially in this country?
We don't have it. It's here. Islam is still here, and this is the whole thing. As Muslims, then we have to be able to push forth this belief in it. If we believe wholeheartedly in what our Creator has said, then yes, it's there. So we have to act upon it and be examples.
If it's there, either one of you, show me where it's there. Show me where our moral integrity is to be able to protect.
Where's your Quran?
I want you to tell me about it. I don't want you to tell me about a book. I want you to tell me about what we have that demonstrates that we have the moral integrity to stand for truth, no matter who it's for or who it's against.
Do you have a mirror?
Yes, I just need to see it.
No, I'm gonna put the mirror, and you'll see that. You see that it's there.
But
look at yourself in the mirror. You see that's there.
I see me.
I listen to the stories about you and your father and the family and what you went through and stuff, and I see what you're saying is there. Just because it's not in the media, just because it's not publicized all that, it is there.
But then how do we?
It's there, right there.
But
you.
I'm here, and Ilhan Omar is in Minnesota.
But Allah says, save yourself and your family from a fire.
Absolutely.
So you're doing that part.
Absolutely.
And by being an example. Because our Prophet ﷺ, peace and blessings be upon him, was an example to what? The world.
That's
but
right.
before he went out to everybody else, he was first in his community. And this is how we have to start. And once the people return to that thing of being able to be example in their own communities, and then the people see those examples, and then they follow examples, it'll change. So like I said, it's there right now in front of you. And this brother that's on the phone, the things that he's done. If you look and listen to his show,
I understand that,
it's there.
But I think his question, Sharif's question, is a little bit more pointed. And that is, if something were to jump off right now, do we have within us, not within us, but do we have the apparent ability to go out and stop it if something was going to happen? Is that where I think you're going with this question about, can we protect the sisters?
That's it.
That's what I meant.
We don't have anything.
We don't have anything.
We know that.
Therein to me lies the problem. That's why we have to, the three of us.
So what can we do? What can we do? Because we know that we have a problem. We know that we're not ready.
Absolutely.
We know that most are not ready.
Absolutely.
So that's why we have that going back to our Creator, going back to that beautiful example of Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace and blessings be upon him, is that we have that example that it starts with a family. And then from there, you can build. Look at that small amount of people in a 23-year period to go from where they were. Right. From one man, his family, to grow and to come up to a large amount. So imagine if we had pockets of this all over, how that would happen. So what we have to do is first, we have to believe in it.
Right.
And to believe in it, you have to act upon it. But what happens is we continue to mirror the statements of the people that don't believe in it, and they say, "Oh, well, they stopping us. They doing this, they're doing that." And when I was on the show before, we keep talking about what they doing. Let's talk about what can we do. Right. And the example that we have to believe in that example. Like I said, believe in to have more people like yourself, more like this brother, more like the other people that we know. And if more that we get them out, the more that we start shining, then when you ask that question 10 years from now, the answer will be yes. Because we do have people out there.
He said if you ask that question 10 years from now, the answer will be yes.
If we do what we have to do, by getting brothers like yourself and like him and other people like you, and the people seeing and getting that message out there, then being in the community. Like you say, I go into the prisons, right? We go into prisons. They need us. One thing that's sad, especially for our tribe, for our tribe, and then as the Muslims, you go inside the prison and you will have hundreds of people from the Christian community going in there and spending their time. We have more than almost 40% of the population in some of the prisons, the active population, but yet we have 2 or 3 people. And people say that that's not their responsibility. Once that change happens, where people like yourself and other people that are strong start going around and becoming, hope and good images for the people that are in those situations, it will be easy for that change to happen. But what's going to happen is we're still going to wait for the illumination. And see, I'm taking like what he's doing is an attack on the Bronx. Right? No, I mean it's an attack on hip hop. It is. You know what I'm saying? I live down from Cedar Park and stuff. The sisters from the Bronx. I had a choice in high school, with junior high school. I passed the test. I could take French or I could take Spanish. I ain't know any French people. I ain't know any Haitians at the time. Whatever. I lived in the Bronx, mostly Puerto Rican. So yo hablo español. Aprendí de lingüista porque ellos necesitan de conocer el lingüista. Tiene muchos latinos in my comunidad. And so, but
basically he said he learned to speak Spanish because in his community, that's the people that he knew.
Yeah. Cuando yo estaba en la bodega, they tiene the music in español. When I went in the store, they had music in Spanish. And then we have the culture. I learned their culture. We learned, they learned our culture. And then the thing is their history. The slave, when he came to, when they brought the slave, or they brought the African prisoners here, you had people that spoke Spanish that controlled them, people that spoke French that controlled them, and people that spoke English that controlled them. The same family got divided, and now we acting like we different people because my master spoke Spanish, your master spoke English, and his spoke French.
Go to your second question, Sharif, because I'm going to come back and wrap that up.
Yeah, because the Bronx, so going back, that was the beauty of the Bronx, man. It's a mixed culture. He's attacking our culture.
Hey, guys, first of all, y'all smoking, right? And I appreciate you. I want y'all to don't forget that Nancy Pelosi, she sounds like she's working for the Republicans. She done a few things here lately about, she don't want you to impeach Donald Trump. She's gonna sanction these sisters. She's doing a lot of back stuff behind the scenes, working with the Republicans. You gotta understand, man, we ain't Republican or Democrat.
Right.
So we have to be individuals.
Well, here's what the issue is, Sharif, on that. See, Donald Trump is your proverbial boogeyman. He is as close to Satan in the minds minds of people as we
proverbial.
He is as close to Satan as you can get, as in the minds of the people, right? So the scare is on the Democrats is we have to get this guy out by any means. So the question then becomes in our community, with sisters like the ones who stood up here with a totally progressive agenda, with an inclusive agenda, with an agenda that deals with the people, and their voice is marginalized as being extreme left. And people like Nancy Pelosi, who has already admitted that she's a capitalist just like Trump, and she's holding down Trump on some other things, and she's holding down Trump on giving him money for immigration policy when these progressives said, no, you don't starve kids and you don't put kids in cages and then you reward them by giving them the money and they don't use the money to help the kids. So that's created a schism between them and Alexandria Cortez and that enclave. But the question is, the question is lining us up to who are we going to vote for? See, because that's what's going to come out in your next debate. They're going to put forward an agenda that says you have to get rid of Trump. You have to put your particular position, your morals, your sense of right and wrong to the side for a minute until we get rid of Trump. Then we can come back to address it. This is what they're doing with reparations. They're going to say to you, yeah, we will talk about reparations until they get your vote. And then once they get your vote, they'll do what Obama did with the so-called black agenda. They'll put it to the side. They'll do what Johnson did with the so-called black agenda. They'll put it to the side. Every time you get to that particular point, you get put to the side. You get that argument that Obama and Ronald Reagan made. It's a trickle down. I'll take care of white America, build a white middle class, and it will trickle down to everyone else, and all the rising tide will lift all boats. But that's what the setup is. It's a setup to determine whether or not you're going to come out and vote for whoever it is, whether it be Biden, Bernie, or Kamala, one of those, whoever it is that's on the level of not being so progressive and so interested in what goes on in our communities, But are you more interested in getting rid of Trump? And so Trump is evil. I don't doubt that for a minute. But I think that the slickness of it is that Pelosi is positioning our community to be in the position of saying, I can't breathe, and then they say the only choice you have is you have to get rid of Trump. As opposed to an agenda that says we really do need something similar to a Green New Deal, even though I don't agree 100% with it. We do need legislation that says you can protest Israel, as opposed to it being a crime for you to protest Israel. You know, we do need to get rid of people who talk like that. So that's what the argument is. That's what the setup is.
Like with the Tea Party, remember the Tea Party came out against Obama, right?
That's right.
Right. So why we don't have a coffee party? Why we don't have a black party? Why don't we have a party that comes out against Trump?
Good. Let's start it right now.
One of the things is the reality is infiltration. Mm-hmm. Infiltration happened before we even came here. Mm-hmm. And so we keep talking about these parties, that party, this party, they get in this group and that group. The reality is that we have to be able to have a state of mind to be able to make this change. One of the things is just like everything that you're saying about the Democrats and what they're doing, and they're putting this guy like, yo, look, you know, good cop, bad cop and stuff. That type of situation. Remember how I grew up and stuff?
Absolutely.
Oh man, well, you don't want to deal with him.
That's right.
You know, so here it is. But look, yeah, I know mine is bad, and I know we have this program, we have these two guys that's married and all that. You know, get with them or these other. You know, I know you don't like that, and I know your religion is not with that, but you don't want Trump.
Here you go.
I'm like, well, look, I got to really look at it. I mean, I might have to take, because I've been going through what Trump is giving my whole life. There's other new stuff that you're trying to bring in and make me accept and be pushing it into my community and saying that this is the way. I'm not with that. Mm-hmm. And then we get attacked. I was talking to somebody about, you know, how the society is turning into a heterophobic society. Mm-hmm. And somebody said, heterophobic? What is that? I said, let me ask you a question. If I would have said to you 15 years ago, what is homophobic? You would say, what is that? But because the people used it and brought it forth. But the reality is our society is heterophobic. As a heterosexual, proud to be a heterosexual, teaching my children about being heterosexuals, I have if I say that I want to do that, then, get it back here. You see what I'm saying? So here it is. That's how they do, like you said, the boogeyman type of thing. Right. You know, the shaitan type of thing. Oh, he's the devil and stuff. Yeah, but he may be outward one, but the prescription, the individuals that you have, live the life and follow the prescription of the devil. Right. Everything, and then you're saying, okay, but you know, I understand that, but you know, you gotta, you know, do you want that other one? You see what I'm saying? And so the reality is we got to focus back on local politics. Look at the local politics got these 4 people in. Not some national agenda and everybody getting together, kumbaya and all of that. No, focus on developing local leaders. Going back to, like I said, you yourself, a local leader. You see? A brother that's teaching people about law, putting things out. People like, that's what we have to come back, not some national person, oh, you know, Obama's our savior, and then he's gone. No, we have to go back to local leaders. That sister from the Bronx, the sister from Ilhan. What Muslim in America stands up like that sister? We got a woman standing up stronger than the men.
Look, I said that the last time
we got
I was
a
on this
woman.
show. That she
in a religion that's dominated by men standing up, we got a woman that's standing up more than men. That's right. That's not scared. And she didn't make a statement against the Jews. She made a statement against lobbying individuals to you know, and that's it. She didn't even mention them. That's right. Or she didn't mention, really, I like to say, Ashkenazi Jews. You know, she didn't mention these people. She just mentioned about that. So here it is, but she's standing up. And so we as men have to start standing up. But like I said, brother, like Sharif, like other brothers, we have to start, you know, pushing forward the men, strong men, and go back to the local thing and get the people involved. They're attacking us so they can get our youth to not want to vote. When I hear the young people saying my vote doesn't matter. Well, you know, look at this, we got Trump, we look at this. Oh, well, you know, I'm not going to vote because I'm not with that. And I always point out, I said, well, what about your school board? I said, what about, you know, referendums? What about, you know how many referendums they get in?
What about when you register to vote, you can get on juries? When you get on juries, you bring a different ethos, a different pathos, a different emotion, a different experience to that jury room. There's nothing like standing in front of a jury and seeing that everybody, none of them look like you, none of them think like you. And me, I have to navigate that. I have to stand there and say, I got 3 brothers sitting here.
Right.
Do I let them on? But I know what brothers think like when they see a black defendant, especially if they're from that particular neighborhood. They grew up in whatever white neighborhood, and they don't want to be associated with anybody black.
Right.
So I got to navigate that. The white guy's sitting here looking at me like, yeah, what you doing even in our town trying to case?
Right.
So I got to navigate that. I got to remember the history and begin to navigate all of that as I'm going through it.
And that's amazing. That is a tactic, and that's what we have to do. We just spend too much time discussing problems. Let's discuss tactic. That's a nice tactic. Because the reality is, think about it. And if we just got the people to start voting, now when these guys have to take a plea, because they're scared, they know they're going to get a jury or whatever, and they're like not taking chances. But imagine if you have to go to court to defend them, and you got it that when all your selection is your trial.
That's right.
People that understand,
people
that know
who will
you.
be able to identify with you, even if they handkerchief heads or they toms or they arrogant or they militant or whatever. At least you know, having lived that experience, that they live a similar experience to you. So when a cop says, "Oh yeah, I saw him drop this such and such, and he ran and it's midnight,"
right?
Unless you got a flashlight on the brother, you didn't see him drop. You didn't see it. Look, I'm telling you real life stuff.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing. Or you could put 2 bullets in the kid and you say, "I saw him reach for a gun, but I couldn't find the gun." Right. There are some communities that say, well, he shouldn't have reached for the gun.
Exactly.
And our community be like, no, we've been here before.
Exactly.
You bring a totally different experience, but that's from registering to vote. Now,
that's amazing, man. That's a nice connection.
I am not anti-registration of voting. I believe you're supposed to register. You're supposed to make your voice heard in every level that you can. But what's happening right now is an exact example of what happened with Eric Garner. They are trying to shut down the voice that would speak for us. This voice that needs to be heard, the Ocasio-Cortezes, the Presleys, the Talibs, they're trying to shut that voice down so that they can usher into our thought process, so the voice they want to be heard. So they'd rather battle it out with Trump.
Our time is wrapping up, but real quick, I was going to say.
How many minutes we got? Let me know how many. Let me know we have 2 minutes.
Okay, because one of the things, and this is, like I said, going back to the Bronx, one of the beauties of growing up in New York was not the whole thing of who owned the property.
Right.
Was the fact that culture where you had, all of these people you have, everybody came there and stuff to that city. People from all over the world, and people were able to develop a culture of humanity.
That's right.
Different. I ended up taking Chinese my freshman year of college and stuff because I took Spanish, and so I'm like, okay, but I grew up in the Bronx, and I talked to this. You had cool Chinese people. You had cool people from all over, and that type of culture. So this attack, yes, he's attacking other ones. He's attacking the Muslim, but he's definitely with the Bronx. Yeah, he's a New Yorker. His father's from there, and he knows that when you have people, and especially the Latino community. Matter of fact, when I first started doing construction, I saw the way that blacks talk to the Latinos, and I said, you can never talk to a Puerto Rican or Dominican like that in New York, because they the same as us. So they would check you in your minute. So here it is, but the other people scared because of immigration and all that, and so they don't say something. And so she represents that Latino community that understands that they have come from the same Afro culture, that's going to stand up to you and say, nah, I got rights just like you. I got education better than you. Mine is real, yours is fake.
Let me do my summation. Here's the summation. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there's a game being played on you. The game is Democrat versus Republican, with neither one having something to offer you. They're trying to choke the life out of your activism, just like they choked the life out of you in the 70s when COINTELPRO said they're going to shut down black militancy, and so therefore they murdered Black Panthers, and they incarcerated Black Panthers, and they ran SNCC out, and they murdered Dr. King. They are trying to shut your voice down, and this is what they're doing with those 4 young ladies. And this is why when I heard of Eric Garner, and I understand the circumstances behind it, and this whole I Can't Breathe thing, they just shut his voice down. Now, so that you know, watch what happens next. In the Bronx, where you are, your people are, they're going to run somebody black against Ocasio-Cortez as a way of trying to shut her down, the same way they ran somebody black against Cynthia McKinney when she was too big and she had too much of a voice. They ran somebody black against her to try to get her out there. Poured all the money. Watch them try to run someone who is maybe Jewish against Ilhan Omar to be able to knock her out the box. So they got to find somebody who's a ethnic minority who thinks like them, who wants the power more than they want the righteousness, who wants the position more than they want the truth to be told.
Right.
So that's what they do. This is what they do. And so when they brought the case to the federal government with Eric Garner, they didn't really want justice. They weren't seeking justice.
Like
they figured they could pay off the family for $5 million or whatever, which is what they do with all these cases. They settle for like $5 million because they never have to pursue justice in that case. They never have to invest in did someone do the right thing. And therein lies our problem. We are not in a position yet to be able to demand justice. We have to make the commitment today, each and every one of us, that if you have a child, you're going to give them a book for a graduation present, not a Rolex watch, not a car. Give them a book. Let them read about the history that goes on here in America. Get him something, and not something where they read in sound bites. Discuss with them the history that you know, even if you don't know a lot. Discuss them the history you know. Just like you have to give them that talk on their rights when a police car stopped them, etc., and what to do to get home safely. Make sure that they understand that these particular events in history are repetitive. They are coming back. And they are coming back now with a vengeance. And the question is going to be, come 2020, if you're not organized, your voice will be shut down in ways that you can't even possibly imagine. And so when you say, I can't breathe, the question is going to be whether or not you can breathe under Pelosi's administration or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden's administration, or whether you can under Trump's administration. And frankly, I'm not sure which one is worst. And I don't care how sloppy Trump is. But the difference between a sloppy slave master and a polished slave master is a bar of soap. Not that you're not a slave. This has been Freedom Fighters of the DMV. I'm here with my man Tyreek Lang. We're about ready to sign off. We're going to call that a wrap. Look forward to me. Find the books. April 4th, Lessons on Living and Dying, Raw Law and Urban Guide to Criminal Justice. And come on out with us. Find us on social media, Raw Law on Facebook. Find me there. And let's debate this. Let's argue this. Let's organize. Let's create our own party. Let's do what we have to do to make sure that this kind of stuff does not continue to happen. We're not doing this because we just do it as a social thing. We show up at every time there's a death or whatever. We are talking about making sure that nobody cuts our throats and cuts our voice off ever again.
Make sure you'll spread the message and get this brother out there. The brother's doing work. People want to charge a whole bunch of money to give you advice in law, and he's giving it to the people free. And this is what is needed. It is important for us to know the law. So, push this brother's show. Allah reward you.
Assalamu alaikum. We out over here.